Hey, welcome Forest City Church to this online experience. Thank you so much for being here right there in the chat. We want to know where you're watching from, what you're doing right now in this moment. Unless it's too much information to share, don't do that. But we want to be active in the chat today. We want to talk back to you, our online campus. Today we continue our series, iHeart, talking all things love, relationships, and God's love, and all this crazy awesome stuff. And Eric Parks is going to talk today. But first, we did this a few weeks ago. We want to have some people at our Forest City Church Rockford campus right here in Rockford, Illinois, to shout out you, our online campus. So we're going to kick it over to Ari, the one and only Ariana Ford. Take it away.
Welcome back, online campus. We are live from the Rockford campus. We are so excited that you're tuning in with us today. Don't forget, we are live in the chat. Look at our amazing volunteers back here. They're super ready to chat with you and engage with you. So service is about to start, but before it does, of course, we're going to worship, but we have some people that want to say hey to you again. So let's go check it out and see what's going on here at the Rockford campus.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Have a blessed weekend.
We love you, online campus. We wish you were here. Have a blessed day.
Online campus, what's happening? Carrington Gaines, about to go up and worship. Let's turn up for Jesus.
Okay, so as you can see, we have a lot going on here, and so we just have to arrange a day. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Let's arrange a day where a digital campus all comes to the Rockford campus to meet each other, like a little hang situation. Let us know in the chat. Maybe we can arrange this in the future. But I know you're ready to worship, but first let's sit down with Carrington, and he's gonna lead us into that moment together. All right, so let's get into it.
So this song, Behold Him, I literally just kind of found out about it at the end of last year, like the end of 2020. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was driving in my car and I was just listening to the words. And I just started weeping because I'm like, man, Jesus, Son of God, Messiah, the Lamb, the roaring lion, oh, be still and behold him. It was that oh, be still part, because I felt like sometimes, we get so busy with everything that we kind of forget to just pause for a minute and just take in the beauty of who our God is. And that's what this song did for me. And I hope, at home right now in this moment, it does the same thing for you. Let's worship together.
Before there was light, walked across the pages of time. He who made every living thing, behold him. He who heard humanity's cry, left his throne to wake as a child. He became like the least of us. Behold him, Jesus, Son of God, Messiah, the Lamb, the roaring lion. Oh, be still and behold him. Behold him.
They stretched him wide. He hung his head. For me, he died. They hung him high. Hey, God. Hey. They stretched him wide. Hey. He hung his head. For me, he died. Come on with me. But that's not how, hey, the story ends. Hey, 'cause in 3 days, hey, he rose again. Yeah. Jesus, Son of God, Messiah, the Lamb, the roaring lion. Yeah. And behold, Jesus, Alpha and Omega, our God, the risen Savior. Oh, be still and behold him. Behold him. Behold him. Yeah. Behold him. Behold him.
You call me out upon the water, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, an ocean deep. My faith will stand. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. Your grace abounds in deepest water. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and peace surrounds me, you never failed, and you won't start now. And I will call upon your name
So we're in part 4 of our series, iHeart. And we're talking today about the Greek word phileo. Now, that translates to brotherly love. So that idea of friendship, like friendship is one of the most important concepts, I think, when we are really trying to understand love that we can come across. This idea that we need people in our lives. And this is what I know is that over this last season, all of us, no matter who we are, have understood how powerful the feeling of loneliness can be, right? Like pre-pandemic, loneliness was certainly an issue, but I think post-pandemic, it has really driven home that so many of us literally are dying of loneliness. See, this is why friendship, this idea of connection, community, is such an important part. And studies have been done on the corrosive effect of loneliness. In fact, a study by the American Council of Life Insurance reported that the most lonely group of people in America, actually pre-pandemic, were college students, if you can believe that. You know, we think about how connected we feel these days, but the truth is, most of our connection comes through things like this. It's not community, not life-changing community. When we talk about brotherly love, what we know is that every single one of us, like if you can hear my voice, you need real friendships that are connected for real in your life. Physical friendships. And there's all kinds of benefits. Like we could go down the list that having close friends, real friends in your life, it builds confidence. Having close friends, it brings a sense of purpose and belonging. Studies show that when you have close friends, it affects every part of your life. And we need that. This is why, as a church, we talk about we want to be a place for anyone, for everyone, not just to show up on the weekend and camp out in front of a screen, which we're so glad that you are. It's an important part of the process, but to live life together. That brotherly love, this idea that we need each other, is paramount to us becoming the people that God intended us to be. And to help us sort of wrap our head around, what does it look like to live in that kind of community? What does it look like to be in a space where we really do love each other, where we are loved and love, where we are known and we know others? I think there's one passage that we have to look at, because I'd call it sort of the model of the greatest small group of all time. Now, if you have your Bibles, you can flip to it. The story is found in Mark chapter 2. And I'm not going to read the entire story, but let me give you some context. In Mark chapter 2, we know Jesus has begun his ministry and he's preaching. And everywhere Jesus goes, these crowds are stirring and they're drawing. People want to hear what he has to say. So people are starting to follow him, pack into the places that he goes. And in Mark chapter 2, it says a few days later, Jesus again entered Capernaum. The people had heard that he had come. So they gathered in such large numbers that there was no room left, even outside the door. So he preached to them. So in other words, like this house was packed, and then there was people crammed around the outside of the home. They were everywhere. Well, there's a guy. There's several guys. 5 of them to be exact. 1 who was paralyzed, and 4 of his buddies. The Bible tells us that these guys, somewhere along the way, they sort of concocted a plan that the best thing that could happen was for them to get this paralyzed guy to the guy who was teaching, Jesus. As they came up to the place that Jesus was teaching, they realized, well, there's no way we're going to get to him. Like they're carrying this guy who was paralyzed on a mat. But it didn't stop him. And this is when you begin to realize, man, the power of friendship. I don't know if you've ever had anybody in your life who literally would go through it with you. You know, somebody who, when the storms of life come, stood with you. Somebody who, when you got yourself in trouble, were there for you. If you have, you know what it feels like to have somebody like that. This is the story. Here's this paralyzed man whose 4 friends won't take no for an answer. And this is what I love so much about the story. The Bible tells us that since they couldn't get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus. Now, I want you to think about what an amazing group this is. This is why I call them the greatest small group of all time, right? Because they walk up, they see there's no way for them to get to Jesus, but they don't turn around. They don't leave. They concoct the most harebrained ideas. Sometimes I wonder if these 5 guys were my son's age, because this sounds like something Graham and his buddies would do, right? This is what you do when you love somebody, but their idea was simple. What we're gonna do is we're gonna climb on the top of this guy's house, who we don't know who it is. We don't know anything about him. We're gonna cut a hole in his roof. I want you to think about this for a minute. We're going to cut a hole in the roof to lower our buddy, lower him through the hole in the middle of Jesus talking and teaching. And all 5 of them went, genius. So they climb up on the roof, they cut a hole in, they lower the man. And we find out in the story that Jesus forgives him and then heals him. But this is what I want you to think about. It's about the friends. Don't you want friends like that? Friends that would do anything when you have a need. Cut a hole in the roof, answer the phone when you're going through crisis. This is brotherly love. This is phileo, and this is the kind of place we have to be. Like, if you consider yourself part of Forest City Church, we want to be that kind of place, a place where you find your people who will stand with you, will go with you, will fight with you. And I thought, how can I help us all not only dream about a place that's like that, but understand our role in it? Because the reality is, you and I, we have a role in this. Like, we'll never be this kind of place if you and I don't create this kind of place. So, in an effort to try to help us understand, what do you have to do to have friends that would cut holes in roofs for you? What does that look like? I want to break it down real simply. I think all of us need what I'm calling a relationship IV. IV. But I'm really breaking that down into 2 words. Number 1, if you want friends like this, every single one of us have to start with the I. We have to be intentional. I think too many of us, we've resorted to Facebook posts or our relationships being primarily digital, and that's fine. You can keep up with people. But the reality is, for us to have the kinds of friends that we read about in Mark chapter 2, that we dream about having in our lives, we have to be intentional. You have to do something. And too often, we wait around for someone to invite us in, when the reality about relationships is that every single one of us have to step out. Around here, you'll hear us talk about community in terms of a thing called the 7th floor. This idea that something special is happening at Forest City Church, and that it began happening on the 7th floor of the Talcott building. It's more than a floor, and it's more than just a building. It's actually sort of like a concept of brotherly love. And I sat down with some of our team who have experienced what's been going on and asked them to help you understand how important it is for each and every one of us to be intentional to help create 7th floors everywhere. Check this out. So last summer, I knew we were going to be moving. I was going to be moving to Rockford, and Chrissy, the kids, they were all staying in Colorado. This was the deal. So I was really worried about what's it going to look like, because my family's not with me. I'm not sure how that's going to work. And so I came downtown, found this building, and as soon as we hired you, the first place I brought you, my light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, oh, well, then I would have a buddy. If I could get Carrington, Ebb, and I was looking at pictures with Charmant when we were looking in that building that room down there. But I don't think I understood what I understand now, that maybe God was up to something. Like, it seemed sort of like a random, hey, why don't you stay in the same building? Then I'm not by myself. I have some friends, like baked in friends. But over the last year, some stuff has happened, and we talk about it in terms of, we all know this, and everybody who swirls around the church knows we talk about the 7th floor, which is where we live. Tell me from your guys' perspective, because all of you have experienced it. If you were trying to describe what the 7th floor is, like what this thing is, because it's not a building and it's not a floor, and it's not even that we happen to all live on the same floor. Something else is going on.
It's a family. I think it almost gets back to like when my grandmother and them was young, when they used to say they'd go down the hall, or no, it wouldn't be down the hall, it would be across the street or to their next door neighbor. I need some butter, I need some sugar, I need this, and I ain't, you don't go to the grocery store, you go to your neighbors. And like, that's how it's been here. It's like, hey, we help each other, we do life with each other. We like came from different parts of the country, some of us, but it's like we've been able to like, incubate in this like situation just with each other, and just like grow culture and community, and it flows from here. And now we get to the church and it's like, oh yeah, it's like 7th floor everywhere. Or we go to somebody else's house and it's like the same vibe. Like, we can go to Belvedere, to Justin's house, and he's like, bro, this is like the 7th floor at my house. Yeah, but it all happened just because we all came here and we just decided to like do life with each other.
There's been a couple of times like when this place has been so full of people. Like, literally this place, because this is not big, you can't tell, has been so filled with people. And I remember it was probably when I started realizing something special was happening. I think Chrissy was with me, but James was here, and we were sitting back in the corner, and he said, where else in the world do you think right now a room like this is happening, right? Like, because it was like young and old and black and brown and white, and it was just a vibe, right? It was a thing, and that's what's been.
Dude,
Scott.
and I remember we stood right there in this apartment, and Walt came up to me and he's like, Lauren, gives me a big hug. I've never met Walt. He's like, I'm Walt Scott, and I've been telling everyone in my small group that I'm your uncle and you're my niece when I see you on the TV. And I said, wait, Walt Scott. Walt, I have an uncle, Walter Scott. I actually have an uncle, Walter Scott. He's like, well, now you too. And I remember living in the city, and people were like, oh, you're moving to Rockford. Do you know where you're going to live yet? And I remember saying, well, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to live with my friends at the Talcott building on the 7th floor, on the same floor as them, not with them. And so, but I think community, when I think about it, I think that's what it should be. It's a no-brainer. Yeah. It's a no-brainer that when I have a need, I call these people. It's a no-brainer that when I need a good cry, I call these people. It's a no-brainer when I just want to kick it and have a great time, I call these people, for City. Like, that's what the 7th floor, that's the hope, It's filling a home, it's filling a space with anyone and everyone, Like, that's, we don't just want it to be like, oh, people my age, people my vibe, people, even in this, I mean, me and Eb and Ari and our friend Andrea went out to dinner last night and met a girl named Marie, and she's supposed to be just waiting our table, and she's standing there the whole night. Like, we got her number by the end of the night, and we're like, yo, come to our roof and come hang out, and and it's like, that was the 7th floor at Tavern on Clark. It's this idea of building bridges, creating community, and just having real relationships with people.
Yeah.
Bread, one of the things I remember.
We should tell people his name is James.
Yeah.
James, and we call him Cornbread.
Yeah. I'm going to call him Cornbread.
Just let him know.
I'm going to call him Cornbread.
His mama named him James, but I'm going to call him Cornbread.
James, a.k.a. Cornbread. I just want the people to know who you are. You know what I'm saying?
So Cornbread, this was probably, I don't know, a couple months ago. You were sitting in that brown chair, because that's kind of like the chair. Cornbread always sits in the same chair, like this chair. I'm like, he's serious. He's in that chair. But I remember you talking about how, one of the things you love to do is to sit in a space and just observe. Yeah. You said, like, I stay pretty quiet, but I'm always watching. So, you're the newest, like, member of our team. Yeah. So, which is, my mind is like blown. Like, what have you, when you've been observing and just watching what's happening, like with the 7th floor and these people and this thing, how would you describe it?
Well, to me, it's pretty ancient, actually. It's a very deep internal thing that's happening, and it reminds me of how tribes are being built, because you have married people here, married people over there, there's a single person over here, a single person. Everybody's coming from these different places, and they're their own individual families, their own individual pods, but they get together and they have a central focus.
Yeah.
And they theme, they end up theming their lives together, even though they come from all these different contexts.
Right.
You know, from different places, different cultural backgrounds, socioeconomical differences, and you create your tribe. A tribe has been created, and it's like that tribe is what becomes community. It's always there's always tribe before community. So it's like to see it happen in an organic setting, and it's just happening. Like just wasn't even a thought, you know?
Just happen.
And for me to be before even signing the paper, you know what I'm saying? I would just come up. And
since
felt like
August, basically since the beginning.
Right.
And felt like I was going home. Leaving home felt like I was going home. Felt like I had.
That's crazy. That's good. I like that.
That is good. Well, and I think like when we talk about what we feel like we stumbled into, it is ancient, because like Jesus, this is what Jesus was doing, right? Jesus would be like, "Hey, why don't you come hang out with me?" That's it. Like when he talked to James and John, when he was bringing all the guys together. He didn't preach to them. He said, "Why don't you come hang out with me?" And so it is ancient, and yet in so many ways it feels like brand new, right? Because it feels like what is happening here, we're looking at going, well, this can't just stay here, right? What we want to see is what we've organically been living in over the last year. We want that to be everywhere at Forest City Church, right? Like exported out. Like when you guys think about the dream, what does that look like for the average person that calls our church home? I mean, you know, as we think about exporting the 7th floor, what does that mean?
Man, I think on a heart individual level, I think it's not having the possessiveness about your space, your community, but really saying, no, this is actually open to everybody. You know, because sometimes when you found your niche in your community, you want to hold on to it. And it's like, you do get that possessive, cliquey thing, but you're so glad you have a space. You're just like, no, I'm good, I have a space. But I'm like, what does it look like for all of us to be people that say, hey, let's always look for the one in the back of the room. Leave R99 for the one person who's like, I don't have a 7th floor. I don't have a community I can just kind of ease into. And how do we be that for other people, you know?
And just be the place. I mean, I think we've probably hinted to it, but anyone and everyone, literally live that way, regardless of, hey, I don't believe in this and I don't believe in that, and all of these different barriers that we put up against people. Breaking that down and just saying, well, you're a person first, and I love you. That's 7th floor.
No,
that's why we've literally had people from all different walks of life come around and just be like, man, this is church. This is what church people feel like. I want this type of church, because it's like we've literally said, come on. I don't have a hell or heaven to put you in. We just want to be family. We just want to, and that's what it is to be 7th floor culture. That's why we're like, hey, that's why the church has to be 7th floor. That's why our lives have to be 7th floor, because hey, that's kingdom at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So I think that's it. That's it for me, man.
I feel like it challenges all of us to be open and be receptive to whatever's out there. I'm a person, you know, I have friends who some would consider a gangster, but then I have Walt Scott text to me like, hey man, I love you, dog. You know? And so it's like you find yourself in a place where my life isn't just my own. Right? I belong, not only do I belong to God, I belong to Jesus, but I belong to my brother. I belong to my sister. I'm available for them. But, you know, and that's a hard space for some people, because society makes us get in our boxes and get in our bundles, and we got to challenge ourselves.
It's about intentionality, no doubt, because I think at the end of the day, I think everybody's surprised. We tend to have ideas about what others look like that we don't know.
Yeah.
We think we know how they might live, what they think, until we get to know them. And then, man, it's like I really do think when we talk about all the ground at the foot of the cross is level, I think that's true, but I think what I've started to realize about relationships is relationships mirror that leveling of the ground. Like when I'm in a relationship with people, like a lot of my assumptions about who they are, what I think, how they think, where they came up, all change just because I'm like, oh, that's a real person.
Yeah.
You know, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And it is gospel. You said it well, Brad. It's like, this is Jesus stuff. This is gospel stuff. This is kingdom stuff. So that's why, like, we want to see 7 floors everywhere.
Period.
Everywhere.
Period.
You know, the reality is we want to see these 7 floors spring up everywhere. And it takes each and every one of us, like, committed to be intentional to make it happen. But there's a second piece. That's why I called it a relationship IV. And it's that for 7 floors, for us to see brotherly love, to begin to envelop us and create friendships like we see in Mark chapter 2, we have to also be vulnerable. What I mean by this is that it's not enough just to get in space and talk about football games and baseball games, and that's great. That's fine. Listen, some of the best times I've had with some of my best friends are started off having like conversations about the Cubs or the Bears or the Packers, and these are natural parts of real relationships. But for us to have relationships that really, really stick, we have to learn how to be vulnerable. We have to be intentional, but we also have to create spaces where we can share who we really are. You know, you think about the guy on that map. You know, it's interesting because when you look back in ancient times, one of the things you realize is that in those days, someone who was disabled, if they were blind or they couldn't walk or had some sort of physical infirmity, most people thought that they had that infirmity because they did something wrong, right? So the reason why they were so often outcast was because someone thought, man, I don't want to be around someone who did something wrong. And in Rome, it wasn't unusual for the wealthy to keep people who were physically or mentally disabled, and they would refer to them as fools and use them for amusement. So it'd be understandable for someone who had grown up on a mat to create all kinds of walls between them and the rest of the world. Like for that guy to have 4 friends who would rip a hole in a roof and drop him in, it's remarkable because his instinct would be to protect himself. He'd been told his whole life, all these people are gonna do is hurt you, make you feel stupid or like a fool, but somehow along the way, this man decided to let these 4 guys in. I mean, they all knew that he was paralyzed, but he let them know him. And when they got to know him, obviously, they'd do anything for him. See, for us to create 7 floors, little pockets of brotherly love, we have to be intentional, but then we have to be willing to share who we are. Now, not always and not in every moment. I think sometimes some of us can overshare and we go too far. But here's what I know, for us to ever be a place where literally brotherly love just breaks out in 7 floors all over our cities in Rockford and in Elgin, we have to be intentional, and then we have to be vulnerable. Let people know who we are. Now, let me say this. I heard Dietrich Bonhoeffer say this. He said, whoever cannot stand being in community should be aware of being alone. And for some of us, the reality is, the reason why we're in community, not in community right now, the reason why we don't have friends in our life isn't because we haven't been intentional. It isn't because we haven't been vulnerable. In fact, some of us, we've been intentional and vulnerable, and then we got hurt. And we decided, you know what? I don't want this. I'm done with this. I don't want a seventh floor. Seventh floor hurts too much. Doing brotherly love hurts too much. I did what you asked me to do. I got absolutely wrecked. And let me say this. I understand this as well as anybody in the world. I know what it feels like to both hurt and be hurt, and wreck friendships and have friendships be wrecked. And it can leave you with this thought that, you know what, I'm better off just by myself. But you know that's not true. If you've been hurt, welcome to relationships. Reality is when we are intentional and vulnerable, we give ourselves the potential to be hurt. But listen, we also give ourselves a chance to be known and loved in ways that are hard for me to explain. John Ortberg says this, I think it's so perfect. Human beings who give themselves to relational greatness, who have friends they laugh with, cry with, learn with, fight with, dance with, live and love with, and grow old and die with, these are human beings who lead magnificent lives. You may get hurt. You might need another relationship, IV. And if that's you, I want to challenge you. Get back in. Be intentional again. Find a friend again. Open your heart up again. And could you be hurt again? Yes. But you could also find life again. Listen, we have to be a church for anyone and everyone. And that means that every single one of us have to take this seriously. We have to step in and be intentional and be vulnerable in these spaces. And this is what I want to ask you to do. This summer, we're piloting some groups. We want to start groups all over our cities, places where people can intentionally step in and places where they can be vulnerable and know each other. But we need some people who will be intentional and lead them. We don't care what they look like. Like you might say, look, I want to start a running group. That's awesome. I want to start a group that meets for coffee. We want to do a Bible study. Here's what we know. We know that when someone intentionally steps forward and opens up their home or opens up their world and invites people in, we give other people a chance to experience brotherly love. And I'm asking if you wouldn't consider this summer leading a group. Now, it's really simple. There's a QR code at the bottom of your screen. And if you're at all interested and want to hear more about how you can begin to create seventh floor communities like in your space, in Elgin or throughout Rockford, maybe Belvedere, in Roscoe, Rockton, I'm going to ask you, scan the QR code, fill out the form quickly, and someone from our team will get in touch with you, help you understand how you can take the next step. But let me say this. You can't wait for someone else to step in and create space. We need you to do it. I need you to step in. Be intentional. Open up your life, your world. Scan the QR code and give it a shot, because this is the kind of place we have to be. We have to be a place where anyone and everyone can find community, can connect with their people, because we really believe that this is the best way, like the gospel way, the way that Jesus had in mind for every single one of us. Let me pray real quick. God, for all my friends that are listening, I ask you, will you give them courage, especially if their heart's racing, to step out and consider this summer leading out. Scan the QR code and help them take a courageous step of leadership to help us build seventh floor communities all over this region. God, thanks that you showed us what it looks like to be in rich relationship. Now, may we have the courage to take the step and be intentional and then be vulnerable so that we can see little seventh floors spring up all over. Pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in today. Got a few things I want to talk to you about. And that number one thing is this. If you'd like to give towards Forest City Church for us to continue to put out these digital experiences, we have an opportunity for you to text in. Now, for the last several weeks, we've been texting Forest City, 2 words, to the number 77977. We're changing the number due to some requirements that have changed in regulations with the phone companies, nationwide, worldwide, whatever. So I need you to put this number in your phone, okay? 833-586-7375. Whew, it's on the slide, so just write it down. Text Forest City to that number. Hey, another thing, we want you to go over to our YouTube to rewatch any of our previous messages, and also you can go to the channel tab and watch our Forest City Worship YouTube channel for all the music that we have been putting out on there. You can also check us out on social media, on Facebook, and on Instagram. Hey, last but not least, last week I talked about a Forest City Church online campus email subscription just for you, the online campus. We're gonna start sending out these every single Monday starting tomorrow. So several of you signed up, but we need more of y'all to sign up. So right now, QR code's gonna jump up. Bing! I just felt like that was needed to make the noise. So bing, there it is, QR code. Scan the QR code, subscribe to our online campus email. You're gonna get something in your inbox every single Monday from our team to you to help you in your walk with God, in your walk with your family, your own life, everything in between. It's gonna be really, really cool. So do that. We'd love to continue to have you be connected here to the Forest City Church online campus. That's it for me. Trevor signing off. Thanks so much again for being a part. We'll see you next week. Bye.